So, hi everybody, again, Shane, Spencer. The goal was make something where the most common end result so far has been one of the few options I've programmed in, which is reporting a dirty bathroom stall. And we had a few false positives, I'm sure of it, the other day. See, it's all password protected. Okay, I gotta play with this. So, anyways, what I ended up getting done, and I've been thinking about this all week. How would I implement it? And so when we got going on Friday, which was great, I loved having that extra night. Ended up setting the server for it up, and getting all the stuff out of the way, and was able to actually make some real progress. So, what I ended up with is the big red button, as you can see right here, and he's on a mobile network. So if I actually press, I'll show you. If I press the button, it starts loading, stuff goes through, and then I see that I'm right next to the Egan Center, which is the closest point available to me in the data set I'm using. And that data set comes from Factual. And I can view real quick what the Egan Center is all about, and then scroll around, and I'll put this up on the big screen in a few seconds, and report a problem, dirty bathroom stall. All right, and now that actually, it emails me. It didn't email the people with the Egan Center. But I should have probably pulled up my email. All it does is basically say there was a problem in your bathroom. Maybe you should go fix it. And what I'm really hoping to get out of this is to tie a whole bunch of place information to valid, good email addresses that work more for a local person to contact, because we have a ton of information out there, like all of the data that I pulled up for this local area. Here, I'll just press this real quick. It's a little different when you're on a network. It gives you a more approximate location. So all of this data that's pulling up is coming from Factual, and here, Snow City Cafe, that's no big deal. I'm pretty sure that's going to someone local. But if I end up going somewhere else, like Marriott was on here a little earlier. When I click on the Marriott, it's just customer support at Marriott, and that's not really going to get what I need done, because they're going to have to track down who the responsible person is, all this other stuff. I'd like to just one shot get that out of the way, get the community involved in a way that they could be like, hey, I need you to actually email this person when things happen at this location, and then it's pretty much done. So the product works at this point. I need to add in a lot of options based on category IDs of what kind of place you're at, so that way you can start reporting all those other things, like I just got really bad food service, or I need a waiter over here, please, or something else like that, so that it actually communicates with somebody about what's going on. Yeah, it actually, as far as a very alpha product goes, it works. And so what I noticed through the hackathon is tons of the developers here were actually stepping outside of their comfort zone substantially in order to get something done. And I'm really proud of you guys for that. So I had been meaning to learn Backbone a little bit more in this process, and I had noticed, well, actually a few people had mentioned that they weren't quite sure when stuff was happening with the app as far as a user interface perspective. So I was like, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to learn the Backbone style of things. So at this point, it's completely using Backbone, the templating engine, everything else like that, single page application. It's a little bit more intuitive about how it does things. Okay, so it's just, everything's preloaded. I don't have to do anything twice. I can go back. This is the only part that's a little funky at the moment, but going back to the main one, I mean, there's just no reloading. So it's actually very mobile optimized at this point. It only has to go after the data once until you actually click the button again, and then it updates and it says, hey, where's my location? That location comes from your browser. I don't know how many people here know this, but your browser on your mobile phones connects to the GPS, and you have to allow it. But when you make that call, it says, hey, this web app wants to know where you are in the world. You have to click OK, and then all of a sudden that happens. So Just be aware that that's what's happening when that pops up. Like if you go to like my Sweet Ride forum.com and they're like, hey, we want to know where you are in the world. You might want to click no. They don't really need to know where you are. So if they do click no, there's a good chance that nothing will break. So anyways, yeah, it was based off of Python and an asynchronous web framework called Tornado. Used the factual data. The front end was all done pretty much in Bootstrap. MongoDB is being used in the background to do all the logging for everything that's happening here, as well as the caching for all the location information and for the reports. So, any questions? Way in the back.
Is factual, I'm not familiar with it, is that something that you have to pay for, or is that freely available? Is it media?
Yeah.
How does it work?
If I were to continue working on this, I would find a better data source. It's actually really sparse up here anyways, regardless of whether I'm paying for it. But there's a pro account that you'd want to be involved with, so you can clear more than 20 points at a time for a location. I wasn't very impressed with only getting 20 back on the free tier. So
And the whole concept of it is you give it coordinates and it tells you what's nearby or where you are specifically as far as what business you're at or something like that.
so it does tell you exactly, like, hey, this is the information for this location. And the whole reason I chose it over other solutions was that it helped precede a lot of that information about website, email, telephone numbers. No one else really had that information readily available at the level that they did. So if I moved off to Twitter Places API or Google Places or one of those other kinds, I end up having to rely a lot more on the community for all that information. But as it stands, Factual just did not have enough information in general to make it helped with this for the hackathon, and that's pretty much it.
I would say overall, though, it looks like it's going to be a really good long-term source.
Yeah.
The guy who started Factual started AdSense and sold it to Google. So he's got a lot of resources, and he clearly knows what he's doing in terms of identifying data sources to pull in. So it's definitely just going to keep growing.
Correct. They actually have a ton of big players working with them.
Yeah.
As far as the Lore 48 is concerned, much more handsome data. The structural information that they give you is all in JSON. It's got hours in there. It has display variety of the hours, so it's really easy to get the string content without having to do any library calls. Then it's got itemized hour information. It's got websites, email, telephone numbers. I think it had manager names in a few of them, and then it has the ability for you to submit information. So I actually submitted the boardroom here. But the way that things work in their QA department, it takes about a week or so in order to actually see that in their database.
So were you saying that this is a Google product, or this is?
Yeah. Oh, so there's an API called Factual. They have tons of location information, which they try to aggregate from other sources,
Okay.
and then they sell that information to other people like Twitter, Foursquare,
And Factual's an
Facebook.
API?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just factual.com, if I'm not completely mistaken.
Yeah, it's not.
So would this end up being an app?
It
Or-
is.
It is an app already. It is an app already.
So-
is it on Google Play Store?
No, so that would be a really cool part. The next step to that is actually making it a native application. I'm not a huge fan of the PhoneGap style of things for a long-term project, but I would love to see something like this, like, hey, I'm an Android developer, let's play, or, same thing with iOS. I like to see it on a mobile platform so that people could do that and then submit data.
So right now, though, it just exists as a URL.
Oh, yeah, boop.link.
Boop.link.
Right.
This is a question for, like, a general question anyone can answer. Is there any way to actually get websites to become apps? Like, I've seen a few kind of conversion websites that will turn your website into an app, but I mean, would this be something like that could be applied to, or?
Yes, actually, this would fit well into a system called PhoneGap or Cordova. Cordova, sorry, like Cordova, Alaska.
Okay.
Both of those take HTML and JavaScript and CSS and a little bit of initiation code, which you'd have to do on your own. It's well worth it to take that extra step to learn how to use PhoneGap, and then start messing around with that and seeing what you can create. But yeah, basically whatever you have on your website, you can take a few steps to get you to a point where it's actually into a mobile app a little bit more, and you end up increasing your skills with how data interaction works, and you start developing your own API.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
I'm looking at that now. You have
Yep.
PhoneGap and Cordova was the second
Yeah,
one.
Cordova.
Did you write it in PHP or Ruby or?
This is 100% Python with the Tornado framework and a MongoDB interoperator called Motor. It's all very asynchronous, so if the connection can handle it, I can handle thousands of connections at a time on this instance. No big deal.
Oh,
How
wow.
much data do you have in your MongoDB instance?
Every time someone boops, I get a little bit of data.
Oh, okay.
Thoroughly tested it last night.
Yeah, there was some booping going on his side of town. But
And this may have more to do with where the data is being pulled from, but is there a way that people might down the road have the ability to put up a kind of a temporary source? For instance, if there's a public event, that if there's an issue at the event, they can contact the event organizers who are going to be in a better position to respond quickly to something rather than the person who owns the facility?
yeah, I think so. My first thought on this was, let's go out there and scan a whole bunch of publicly available calendars and not burden anyone else with that. So let's start promoting something that actually benefits a lot more people. Like Lance set up a calendar recently. Most of the news sources up here, they have calendars of some kind. If you give the somebody in the area the ability to plug in an iCal link or something like that and just start scanning that, might be able to auto-populate quite a bit of stuff and get that going automatically. But for things that'll never hit those things, like cool little meetup groups, stuff like that, I would love to see that kind of thing where they can just submit that real quick. To the point where if they're at like meetup.com or they're sharing an event on Facebook or something else like that, just a quick Chrome extension, share this on Boop real quick, and then fill out a few things that it might be missing. You're done. So
I can see the sort of one-time event is actually being a key use case. 'Cause that's in a way that's like it's compared to a restaurant. It's almost a more challenging thing because you don't have the normal channels all there. I mean, just having help run events like that, it's a pain. This
It is.
ends up being a
Well,
ends up being a potentially useful solution, but a lot of these events are just like a day long or 2 days long.
I feel kind of silly because we had people downstairs waiting to get in the building,
Right.
and I had a fully functional Booper active, and it just did not, cross my mind. So we could have been,
Let me in.
the let me in Boop.
Yeah.
And that would have been an amazing thing to have.
Have you considered also allowing mobile users to add either an auditory or visual?
That's the
attachment?
next thing, yeah, let me in and then take a picture.
Like
No. Yeah, that would actually be really cool. One fun thing about this is, both for a mobile web app as well as having a native application, you're constantly getting that location information. So, when you start looking at those lists that you start pulling in, or it can constantly scan for places you're next to, you can see recent events or like a little tagline next to it saying, hey, this just happened. Or if you get close enough to a location, it'll be like, okay, there's my phone just made a noise and now it's talking to me because someone recorded an audio message. Like, you just stepped into that one bathroom stall and then you get like a verbal warning. That would be super useful.
Be a little scary.
Warning,
Yeah,
the door doesn't lock.
Yeah, hold
think-
the door, yeah.
I think you might want some image recognition to filter stuff.
Yes, that's probably a good idea. Moderators, welcome. Yes. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had on it. The funnest part of this was actually learning, getting to say boop a lot while developing this, but then also learning the backbone style of doing things. So it was a little frustrating at first, just because I'm not used to exporting most of my logic to the browser, and it didn't really interoperate in the same coding style as the backend way did. So you end up duplicating a lot of things if you're not doing it right. So yeah, if anyone wants to play with this, feel free. It's a great learning opportunity for Python, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Backbone, Mongo, whatever.
And also for your cross-site forgery cookie that you have, is that something that was native with the stuff you were using, or is it?
Why are you?
We were trying to see if we could curl, but
No, so the cross-site request forgery ticket, that actually is part of the cookie, and then that cookie is verified against the actual post submission. None of that exists in the backbone side of things, since it's all Git oriented. So that's another thing I have to work out. All right. Also, well, actually, any more questions? Yeah. I'd like to point out that Parse is actually powered by MongoDB as well. A lot of the power you can get from Parse, you can get from a local instance on MongoDB. It's just a lot different API than you might be used to. So if anyone has questions about that, let me know as well. I really do like Parse. I'm glad to see it used here at the Hack Club.